Ancient, open space. Realm of the bobcat and eagle, the jewels of Dudleya, Indian paintbrush, most beautiful jewel flower. Native to California from the times before the first humans tracked footprints on this ridge. Watch and listen for the red-tailed hawk, and see the golden eagle hunting their sweet scampering morsels. Hidden in these hills, badger and coyote dens, young pups eager to roam this new land of theirs, taking their turn in the sweet succession of life. This land is moments away from one of the most productive havens of technological innovation, San Jose, California, Silicon Valley. These hills are known to us now as Coyote Ridge. "12 threatened or endangered native plants and 6 threatened or endangered animals, including the bay checkerspot butterfly, live here, and there have been decades of legal proceedings to ensure their survival. Against encroaching hunger for space, against the rush of progress, this land must be preserved and protected. For the animals that call this land home, for the plants, the flowers that blanket the rolling hills, and for us, who enjoy this land and who are responsible members of the natural community, we must summon the will to keep this land we call Coyote Ridge. This is a program about the land, why it is precious, how it is being preserved, and threats to that preservation.
Coyote Ridge is located between San Jose and Morgan Hill, just off of Highway 101, and it's the eastern ridge line as you're going down Highway 101. We actually own about 95 acres on Coyote Ridge, along with some other agencies up there. Coyote Ridge consists of about 7,000 acres of serpentine, and only about 1,200 is currently protected, of which we have about 95 of those acres. And the area to the northeast is part of the Mount Hamilton Range and is currently zoned as ranch land. To the southwest is Coyote Valley, an area being considered for complete rezoning and development.
The soil on Coyote Ridge is of particular interest to us. It is serpentine soil. About 1% of the land in California is of this type. But to understand the importance of serpentine soil, it might be best to first look at non-serpentine soil. The familiar golden hills of California get their color from European and Asian grasses that have come since the first Spanish settled in this area. They have replaced the native grasses. But serpentine soil is low in nutrients, especially nitrogen, and non-native grasses cannot easily grow on it. So on this soil, the native wildflowers and species dependent on them can still thrive, unless somehow this nitrogen is reintroduced.
Well, we had noticed back in the 1980s that when we removed the grazing cattle from the land, that these thick growth of grasses came in. And we never really knew why, but then I was sitting in an ecosystem ecology class, my first year of my PhD program at Stanford, and I heard about this phenomenon called atmospheric nitrogen deposition. And the short way to describe it is that smog is slow-release nitrogen fertilizer. These really nutrient-poor serpentine soils naturally support these fields of colorful wildflowers because they're so nutrient-poor. But when we dump fertilizer on them from smog, on the order of 10 to 20 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year, they suddenly become a more hospitable environment and these grasses invade. It has implications for the whole ecosystem because these plants support a vast array of insects and other life forms that are utterly dependent on certain plant species being out there. So the bay checkerspot butterfly has 2 plants out here that it can use as caterpillar food, and maybe about 5 or 6 plants that it can use for adult nectar. It needs all of those plants in the same place. We don't find those plants in these grassed over areas, and we find them in abundance in these areas that are grazed.
Currently, we're using cattle, believe it or not, to mitigate those impacts. The cattle eat the bad grasses and leave the good plants there. The other main threat is the possibility of development on Coyote Ridge. Potentially, houses could be put on Coyote Ridge or on the slopes of Coyote Ridge. And I think for most people who get up there and see that incredibly beautiful area, probably don't want to have those up there.
And of the native plants and animals endemic to this serpentine habitat, there is one special resident of Coyote Ridge, the bay checkerspot butterfly.
Well, one thing about the bay checkerspot butterfly is that we probably know more about the way it lives and the way its populations work than almost any other natural population of organisms on the planet. And because of that, the butterfly is an entry into a very complex ecological web. So that by understanding how the butterfly is responding to the environment and what components of the environment are changing the butterfly populations, we have an opportunity to unravel a lot of these very intricate relations in nature.
It is not an easy task to preserve 1,200 acres of prime California real estate. It takes science to show the importance of preserving the land, laws to enforce this preservation, and concerned citizens to elect sensitive lawmakers and hold them to their promises. Terry Trumbull is an attorney who headed the California Integrated Waste Management Board when the Kirby Butterfly Preserve was established in 1985.
I headed a state agency that regulates landfills, and we gave Kirby Canyon a permit in 1984 and required 267 acres be set aside to protect the endangered bay checkerspot butterfly and the plants related to it. And subsequently, we've discovered a whole bunch of other endangered and threatened plants and animals. But it is just absolutely amazing how much 1 or 2 people getting involved can do. And I'm sure this site is a product of that. San Jose State students discovered that we had endangered plants and animals up here. Without those discoveries, none of this would have happened, and it was a fairly logical progression from their discoveries.